Hey folks, Richard here again. It's the 4th of July, I'm sitting on the porch, just relaxing. I was reading a book, I'm interested in actually. I'm trying to keep them short, but here I go blabbering again. And so I wanted to comment about I went up to Oakland, sat and had a coffee outside Pete's and walked around a bit just to get out of the house. And a young couple sat just in the outside Pete's there, the chairs, the next to me, just one thing down. And I said something to them that I figured he was African, and he was. They both were, and so when I spoke to them, they naturally said to me, "Happy 4th of July," and where are you from, or something along those lines. And I say, "Well, I'm African," and they I could see that threw them off, and they said, "Well, we're all African, aren't we?" And they said, "Ah, yeah, because it's the birthplace of humanity. The human race was born there. The race that they talk about, like this race and that race, they're not races. We're all human race." And so anyway, so it turned out he was from Zambia and she was from Ethiopia. What the young people, and what an attractive couple. I mean, I didn't know them well enough, but I started making a couple of comments about colonialism. And I mentioned the underdeveloped world. I said, "I don't know why you call it the underdeveloped world. It never develops." And I mentioned something about Nyeri and Tanzania, and how you guys, the Ethiopian girl, how you guys kick the Italians' ass and so forth. And when I said about, they call it the underdeveloped world, I don't know why they do, because it never develops. And we all started to laugh. And I said something else about how this is just interaction with people, and I said something else about speaking African, because I grew up in 3 years of my childhood in Nigeria. And I often, when I lived in East Oakland, I told the guy, I went to say I live in East Oakland, but I said, I lived in East Africa, and they just cracked up because East Oakland is black, and it's the dark part of town. And I lived out in I said I lived in East Oakland. I immediately corrected it. And a lot of the kids in my block, and my kid played out in the street with the other kids, and a lot of the kids who were Black American kids, they'd seen African stuff in my house, because we brought back African stuff. It's been in my house since the 50s, since Africa. And I used to kid them that I could speak African, you see. I speak a language, Masambula, Masambimbe, I used to say. And I'd say things like, and I was telling these young Africans that Kachungi Tafawa Belewa, Masambula, Masambimbe. And these kids, Americans would often, and I don't mean this to put down Americans, but there is a lack of international knowledge and geography. There's no language of African, okay? But anyway, I was I met one of the kids who's a grown man now of 50. I'm still friends with him and his mother. And I hadn't seen him in a while, and he said to me, "Richard, what does Masambula Masambimbi mean?" I said, "David, I made it up, mate." He just went, "Oh, damn it, Richard," But so we laughed, and I laughed with them, and I said to myself afterwards, I said, "Damn, I always have a good time with Africans." And then I thought, well, you know what? I have a good time with Mexicans too. I really like hanging out with Mexicans. And I think there are national traits about people. Like a friend of mine who's English Indian, he said he's a Sikh, and he said, well, the Sikhs are different, and they're different to Hindus, and of course they are. They definitely are. And of course, you could be in Northern Ireland and say, well, the Protestants are different to the Catholics in terms of their behavior and everything else, and they are, but it's not the religion. It's the social conditions that led to them. The Protestants belong to an oppressive minority, even the Protestant working class in America, the whites, even the white working class and the white poor are a part of an oppressing group, and the blacks are the oppressed group. That doesn't mean whites aren't oppressed either, but there's an added, you know what I'm trying to say. So it's not the religion really that makes the difference between a Protestant and a Catholic, or a Hindu and a Sikh in how they behave. It's always the material conditions. And so anyway, I thought to myself, wait a minute. Maybe it is me. My wife says to me, "Oh, jibber jabber, Richard, you talk to anybody," and people say that to me, and I do talk to anybody. It's gotten harder because as a white man, I mean, I always say, put me in a room with 100 different languages and people, I'm in heaven. I go around there and I'm chatting to everybody and learning this and learning that. I say a few words in God knows how many different languages. Thank you, please, stuff like that. And I thought to myself, well, part of it is that personality of mine. And it's not like I'm a goody-goody two-shoes or anything. But I find that most people, if you, like I talked to them a little bit about colonialism in Zambia and in Nyeri, it was came after the colonial period. And I talk to people and I particularly make them laugh. I particularly use humor because if people are laughing, it's hard to be nasty. It disarms people. And it is harder for me now as a white person because I normally would just say, where are you from? But, I might get, that toxic white masculinity or what do you think I'm fucking from and so forth, because of the conditions that exist outside of ourselves. So I do love hanging out with Mexicans, black folks too, and part of it I do believe is my approach. And if you approach people, and particularly if you do know something about them, and so many of us don't, like if you take the Indians, I know about Bhagat Singh, and I know about Bhagat Singh because I have an Indian English friend who taught me about certain aspects of Indian history I didn't know. If you say to any Indian, no matter what background, about Bhagat Singh, he's a hero in India. And he's a hero because he fought British colonialism. He was executed by the British. And most Indians don't agree with his politics. He was in the Communist Party. But they love that he fought colonialism. But when you say that, it shows somebody, it's like going in an Arab store and saying salam alaikum and saying shukran and saying masalama when you leave. It just shows that you paid a bit of attention to their culture. And if you make people laugh, it disarms them. It's a good start. And I think it is part of me approaching people that way. I'm not afraid of people in that way. And I don't know if I've dreamed this or it happened where some sort of gang type guy in a hood, I think it was East LA, was asking me, well, you scared of me? And I said, well, should I be scared of you? You know what I mean? I'm not scared of anybody because they're people. But anyway, I think that's so important. But if you don't have the confidence, you've got to step forward. You've got to show interest. You've got to learn a word if they're a foreigner. Learn a word to say hello. They don't care if you can speak the language. They'll be happy if you try. And what keeps us, isolation is the key to ruling class dominating society and controlling the narrative. If we don't talk, that suits them. And if we do, we find out all of our similarities. Anyway, I'm going to end it because I can see it's getting too much. Hopefully I'll post it and I might make another one. I've got something else to say.